I got y'all. 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 I got. And I'm going to admit it. From one wrestling old head to future wrestling old heads and wrestling old heads alike, I got. And I'm here to admit it. I thought Brock Lesnar was retired, y'all. I just And then it's like Kaiser Soze in Usual Suspects. You go over it in your head and you go, yeah, I should have seen the signs, but I wasn't looking close enough. Brock Lesnar retired seemingly at WrestleMania at the Night 2 event to OBA FEMI in under 5 minutes. It seemed to be an unrehearsed ending that Brock had just decided to do on the fly, and made it seem like he was being improvisational with the way that this ended. Oba looked shocked. Paul Heyman is crying. But the one thing that was a telltale sign was that the cameras were in place and were seemingly ready for every shot. Now, maybe they were trained, it's WrestleMania, it's a big event. So maybe they're on standby. I'm sure they've got Paul Levesque and Bruce Pritchard in their ear and trying to direct where everything needs to go, where everybody needs to be at. Give me a close-up on Lesnar in the ring, close-up on the shoes, whatever. But looking back at it, if it was improv, it was just too clean. Everything was clean. I mean, they followed Brock up the stage. He waved to the crowd. And he's not retired. I had a couple of friends of mine and people that I respect in the business, they talked about Lesnar making a return and retiring at SummerSlam, and I've done videos on it where I just didn't see it happening, To fuel that, I've seen Brock talk candidly on a podcast about his diverticulitis and how his doctor told him if he kept wrestling that he wouldn't live past 50. And I believed him, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews. So I believed him. But Brock is the type of a guy that I can totally see trying to fuck with us, I can totally see him doing that. So it does check out. But he got me. I know he got you guys. I know he did. When they moved him to the alumni section, you guys all got quiet. I know it. Nah, maybe some of you guys knew, but seemingly it doesn't look like he's going to be wrestling Gunther at SummerSlam. This seems to be like they're going for a 3-match series between Oba FEMI and Brock Lesnar, where it will culminate at SummerSlam. More than likely a Night 2 type of a situation, where maybe at that point Brock fades off into the light. But I don't know. Even then, you guys, it's a weird thing because you can never say never. And as the old tagline goes for the WWF, anything can happen in the World Wrestling Entertainment, That was a shocker. I tell you, I didn't see it coming. But then another thing to note is that, do you remember when Brock Lesnar was doing his open challenges and he would come out and nobody wanted to challenge him, seemingly? They mirrored that with Oba FEMI after Oba FEMI beat Brock Lesnar. And as a way that the story bridged there, it seemed like the only person that could answer Brock Lesnar's open challenge was Oba FEMI, vis-a-vis Brock Lesnar being the only person to answer the challenge of Oba FEMI as an open challenge. It seems like they're made for each other in that regard. But the problem is, what are you going to do with Oba after this is done with Brock? Definitively done with Brock Lesnar. And there's got to be a plan. They can tell us that they had this planned out and this was a major swerve and they just needed to buy time. I don't know about all that, you guys. To me, it just seemed like he was cooling off precipitously because they didn't have a set plan to give him a formidable opponent so that he can continue his momentum and eventually become a contender for one of the world titles. And they didn't have that. And if you look at the roster on Raw, it's pretty barren. You've got guys that you're trying to develop right now in Penta and El Grande Americano and Javon Evans and Ethan Page and Rusev. You're trying to get some momentum back for him, and Sheamus is out, and we don't know when he's coming back, if he'll ever come back. And I don't know if you would want him to come back in that role, because he just get booed to retirement if he came up and tried to challenge OBA FEMI. And then you've got Omos, who I thought would have been really nice to bring in and answer the challenge, because he's like his stature, and to see OBA try to do the fall from grace, it would have been something that was interesting. But they got me, and it looks like there's going to be a match at Clash in Italy, and it looks like Brock Lesnar coming out on top seems to be a foregone conclusion. I mean, they can always shock us and have OBA win again. I just don't see that happening in Italy. I think it's Brock's turn to get the number in on OBA. OBA carried that entire program before leading up to the match at WrestleMania. Brock never got anything in on OBA, and then OBA just wiped the floor with him. And now it looks like we're going to see Brock's turn. Brock's going to get one over or several over on OBA FEMI. And then you go with the rubber match. And it seems like that's what they're building to. I'm shocked. And one of the most shocking, the shocker of all shockers is that Brock didn't even wear the salmon suit. He didn't even return and wear the salmon suit, you guys. If you know, you know. And it's not like he would have been worried about like ripping the pants or the suit, the blazer or anything like that. Because if you've seen Brock, he's had more wardrobe malfunctions than his wife. And hey, Brock, don't come at me, man. I mean that. It's a joke. I mean that in all respect. I mean that in all respect. But it's a funny joke, and I had to say it. So Brock's back. OBA now has purpose. He has a program. The crowd is going to be sympathetic of him. But now you've got SummerSlam is potentially going to be their third match. And you wonder if, because it's in Minnesota, Brock's hometown, and Brock might be, sailing off into the sunset here, you got to wonder what the crowd reaction is going to be like. And in today's WWE, the crowd responding could impact an entire series of arenas and crowds that inhabit them, to fill them to capacity for months. If Brock comes out at SummerSlam and he gets cheered and they boo OBA, that could have disastrous effects on OBA FEMI going forward. The crowds just might follow suit. I can't expect crowds to look at that third match at SummerSlam, if that was to be their third match at SummerSlam, if this were to happen, and look at it in a bubble and just consider it a one-off moment. Even if Brock was to raise OBA's hand and give him a hug, and that passing of the torch that he never got a chance to do it at WrestleMania, that he's done with Cody Rhodes. So when you think about that, you kind of think in terms of where this could harm OBA as well. He's going in and it's an away game, essentially. So I just hope I hope they know what they're doing. I hope Paul Heyman has his finger on the pulse here. I hope they are consulting with Paul Heyman on this, as I have a hunch they do with most of Brock's matches and programs. And I just hope they have that planned out, and that they're not going to be too hasty and try to guess what's going to happen next. It's not about guessing what's going to happen next. It's about having a program, following through to that and seeing it end, a complete story. And there's a lot of guys that complain about stories. I see stories all over the place. I see stories in AEW. I see stories in MLW. I see stories in JCW. I see stories in the WWE. They're not always the stories that people are used to seeing or even want to see, but they're stories nonetheless. The story of this is that OBA can conquer Brock again. And he might have to lose in order to do that. and show some vulnerability. And I think it'll be good for him. Because if you look at Gunther is stuck right now. He is in limbo because they positioned him as a career killer, and there's nobody else that's career is seemingly ending that wants to work with them. Clearly. And now he's in limbo, and hopefully he beats Cody Rhodes, but that's not guaranteed. So with Oba, if he just keeps blowing through these local blowing, my God, I'm sorry, you guys. If he just keeps steamrolling through these enhancement talent opening match guys, and then they don't have anything else for him on the other side, and they don't have a formidable opponent, then he can end up in limbo as well. Seems to me like they're going to be holding off for his match against Gunther. They're going to be holding off for his match against Braun Breaker. If Bronson Reed comes back, I'm sure Bronson Reed is going to rekindle whatever he had with Roman before he moves on to potentially battling OBA FEMI. And Roman and Oba, I know they want to hold off on that. That's their meal ticket. So you got to do something to keep them busy until then. So Brock coming back, it kind of saved Oba in a way. I hate to say it. It saved him though. It really did. So I wonder where they go on the other side of this OBA FEMI Brock Lesnar program, given that Oba ultimately comes out on top, gets the respect from Brock Lesnar, the passing of the torch, and moves on. If white hot OBA FEMI then has somebody on the other side, like a Jacob Fatu, for instance, that they can plug in and keep that momentum going, and he doesn't have to go back and do these open challenges again. I did not know that the Raw roster was that thin to where they couldn't come up with somebody to face him that at least you can see why he would accept the open challenge, right? They didn't have anybody. So they only had Brock, and so you just got to hope for the best in that regard. Over and all, I think it's really exciting to see this because it definitely adds a certain spice to Clash in Italy. It adds a sense of excitement going into SummerSlam. There's a lot of questions to be asked. So hopefully they have the answers. And I'm going to be tuning in, just like you are, to see if it's on Saturday night, main event, if OBA FEMI comes out, signs that contract on the dotted line. Because I don't know if they should wait for Raw. I think Oba should come out immediately, and then they do some sort of a contract signing or something going into Raw. They don't have a lot of time here. Clash in Italy is just a little under 2 weeks away. So they got to act fast with this. So I think that Oba comes out on Saturday night's main event, signs the contract, and I think you get some sort of a confrontation where ultimately I think Brock beats Oba down again. And then they go into Clash in Italy, and I think Brock beats Oba. And then I think Oba works his way back up to get another match against Brock, goads him into another match, and then they finish it out at SummerSlam, or they could finish it out before that. You know, they can go to Saudi Arabia, Night of Champions, and they can do the final match there in Saudi Arabia, which is big money. And I know Saudi is going to be chomping at the bit for something like that. That's big money out there. And then you have something planned for Oba at SummerSlam, potentially. I did a video on Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns scenario, and it would tie into this Oba situation quite nicely. If you guys want to check that out, go ahead and hit the notifications bell and the thumbs up. So you're always aware of when I'm going to be dropping in and giving you my opinion on the current wrestling product. Guys, thank you again for listening to this video. If you like this video and more, you know what to do. It's the Wrestling Old Head, you guys, coming out of the portal of pro wrestling, and I'll see you in the next one.